It's time to take command with former NFL tight end Logan Paulsen and former Commanders beat reporter Craig Hoffman.
Take 5, the 5-minute version of Take Command. We're back with story time, Logan. We haven't had a chance to do these with the compressed schedule last week with Thanksgiving, but this is not a happy story time. We go Miami, Washington stories. I don't know what's going to be sadder, this or the game preview.
I think probably this. So this was pretty sad. I think a lot of fans are like, people ask me about this all the time, and I'm like, I don't really think of it as being that big of a deal, but obviously in retrospect, it is a huge deal. So.
Yeah, pretty big deal. The last time that the only time I went to Miami, first of all, very bizarre stadium. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Right. It's like near a casino, right? There's like a casino on the way. And it's like kind of
up near Fort Lauderdale. It's not really in Miami, but it is in Miami. It somehow feels very Miami. The stadium is also a square, which is very odd. You're just like,
hot
what
there
are
all
we?
The time, feels like.
Yeah. And on this particular day in 2019, we knew we were in for some bad football, some really terrible.
Were you on the beat for this
football? Yes, I was. This was my last season on the beat.
Okay.
And Washington had started. I think they had started 0-5, and this ultimately wound up being their first win, if I'm reading this correctly. The Dolphins were 0-4 at the time, and ultimately 0-5 by the end of this game. And that includes, by the way, the fact that they started with 4 of their first 5 at home. So their record, as I look back at the box score, is 0-5, 0-4 home. Incredible. It was a fun little Terry McLaurin coming out party. I guess his coming out party was really week 1 against the Eagles. But again, Terry was fantastic. 4 catches, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. Adrian Peterson had 23 carries for $118 in the game. Nice. And everyone knew Miami was awful, and at the time, everyone thought, hey, this is a tank for Tua season because Tua was the number 1 prospect. Well, at the end of this game, Josh Rosen had been playing quarterback for Miami. They sub in Ryan Fitzpatrick late in the second half. Fitzy goes full Fitz magic nonsense, just pulls this game straight out of his magic hat. We'll go with that. And lo and behold, it's 17-16 with like a minute to go, and Miami lines up for one of the most consequential 2-point conversions in NFL history. I mean, truly, it is hard to underscore how significant this was. So they tie the game, and it wasn't even like with a minute left. It was with 6 seconds to go, Logan. They score from the 11-yard line, a touchdown from Fitzpatrick to Devontae Parker, and they line up for a 2-point conversion to win the game. They don't get it. The pass from Fitzpatrick to Kenyon Drake falls incomplete. That win, while Miami would rebound that season and wind up picking 5th thanks to Fitzpatrick, which kind of launched him going to Washington in conjunction with the other impact of this. They do wind up actually getting to Tagovailoa, and that is the win that separates Washington from ultimately Cincinnati for the number 2 versus the number 1 pick. That 2-point conversion is why Washington drafted Chase Young and not Joe Burrow.
So I don't know, man. Like, I know that's a big deal, obviously, but like I look back at that, and that was week 5? Gosh, So many more games involved in that whole process. Like, so many more opportunities. I thought this was, for whatever reason, when someone was asking about this the other day, I thought this was like, who was that? The Houston Texans and whoever they were.
Last week of the
the
season
last
type
play
of deal.
Of the last game, and they won the game. And this was like week 5. So I don't know. I understand that's a big deal and it affects the record and all that stuff. But I was under the impression that it was much more like immediate in terms of like, oh, it's the last week of the year kind of thing. So, but I guess
they only won 3 games that year, and the thing is, they were so bad that there weren't that many other winnable games,
like close games.
Yeah, I mean they lost, so they beat Miami 17-16. They lose 9-0, 19-9, 24-0. Like they were so bad offensively. Yeah. horrendous offensively. And obviously they put in Dwayne after Jay gets fired. This is a couple games into the Bill Callahan era. At this point, they had lost, I believe, to New England was the last one. 33-7 was the final straw for Jay. So this is I guess actually this was the first game of the Bill Callahan interim era, and then eventually they start Haskins a couple weeks later in Buffalo. They get 2 wins. They beat Detroit 19-16 in late November, and then they beat Carolina in what was ultimately Rivera's final game in Carolina in early December, and then they lose out the rest of it in just brutal, terrible fashion, and ultimately they wind up picking second. And I do wonder, if they would have, because Dwayne was still there, if they would have still taken Chase. Is it all the same and it just looks that much worse because Dan's still in the owner? Dan had an impact on that pick. But if they take Burrow, obviously the season since probably go very, very differently. Do they hire, if they have the first pick, do they hire Rivera? Do they go an offensive coach? There's so many different what ifs in terms of even the franchise being sold because it got so toxic and so terrible. If they're winning, does Dan have the ability to hold on longer? It's impossible to underestimate the significance of all of that.
Yeah, I mean it is, but it's a full season. It's one play, and because it happened so early, they I don't know. I'm a little let down by that story. Actually, I thought this was going to be this really dramatic thing, and then the context of it is just so much different than what I was anticipating. So
I mean, it still was crazy.
I know, I'm sure. Yeah,
Rosen to Fitzpatrick to the comeback. Because the thing was,
I'm sure the game was crazy, no doubt. Yeah. But I'm saying the impact, the fact that people, random people have come up to me this week and be like, oh, do you know if we didn't get that 2-point conversion, we would have had Joe Burrow or whatever. And then Kai mentioned on his podcast, I was like, man, this must have been really dramatic, and I don't remember it at all.
Well, it was really dramatic. That was the thing, but the drama wound up being different than we thought. Because we thought Miami and Washington were playing for the number 1 pick.
Oh,
they were the 2 worst teams.
5?
Yeah, because everyone knew Miami was terrible. Everyone knew Washington was terrible. When Washington just fired their coach. So and everyone knew Miami was tanking on purpose to try to get what we thought was Tua at the time, and would turn out if they had the number 1 pick to have been Burrow. So we knew it was probably the 2 worst teams in the league, and in true historical Bengals fashion, the Bengals crashed the party. But everyone knew at the time, hey, this is really important for probably the top pick. It just wound up being important in a different way.
Yeah, interesting. Maybe that's context that I didn't have when I was mad at this person the other day, or mad at
that's
you.
That's why we have story time.
Ago. Yeah.
Well, that's our story. That's our take 5 for this week. We'll be back tomorrow with a preview of the 2023 version of Dolphins and Commanders. Thanks for watching this clip of Take Command. First, why don't you like it? It lets other people know that it was good, and then they should watch it too. And Logan, we have a new exclusive home for full episodes.
We do. 1067 The Fans YouTube page. Go check it out and please subscribe.
Yeah, do what Logan said.
Do it.
Very, very smart.